is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Dark Tower, Book 5, Wolves of the Calla, Part 2, Chapters 2 and 3. In these chapters, Father Callahan tells us about his time in Jerusalem's Lot, which I take way too long to realize is Salem's Lot, even though I know about Salem's Lot, and sat there going, Jerusalem's Lot? Huh, I wonder if that's like next to Salem's Lot, if he was supposed to be nearby to Salem's Lot, the other thing, because the last two syllables aren't the actual name of the other thing or anything. That's what I was like. I'm quick. Welcome to Unspoiled. I wish I was exaggerating at all. I legit was like, oh, I guess like where he is in Maine, things are called lots a lot of the time. Lots of times there's lots. And then at one point he finally calls it Salem's Lot, and there's a little apostrophe before Salem to signify that it has been abbreviated. And then I was like, oh, it's the same place. Natasha, God help you sometimes. I can put some really subtle shit together, and then shit like that. It's like just I have no explanation. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm disappointed in myself. I've brought shame upon my house. I have forgotten the face of my father. Welcome to the show, everybody. Yes. I am Natasha.
Yes, indeed. Salem's Lot, Natasha. Jerusalem's Lot, as they call it.
Because nobody says, like, Salem isn't short for Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, though. Does anybody call it that? Is that where the name for Salem came from? In, like, Massachusetts? Like, was that...
I have no idea, but it should be, like, Jerusalem, right?
Right!
Like,
that's why it threw me off.
Yeah. No, I know. I think I remember, like... I don't know. So I don't know, because I read Salem's Lot before I ever read any Dark Tower stuff.
Okay.
So, Salem's Lot, I think I've mentioned this before. Salem's Lot is probably... No, definitely my favorite Stephen King book outside of The Dark Tower.
Oh, wow. All right. So high praise.
Salem's Lot is a fantastic book. And there's also an old movie that's like almost 3 hours long, even though it was made in like the 70s. And that shit is also really good.
Oh, that's rare.
Yeah,
Noted.
I know. I was really surprised. I remember I rented it. I rented that shit from Blockbuster when that was a thing. And I was like, man, this is going to suck, but I love the book so much, I have to watch it. And it was great. Anyway. Hi, Natasha. How are you?
Oh, I'm super duper, Miles.
Have you read these books before?
I have not. I haven't. Oh. I actually only read this one chapter, so I was kind of lost. But, you know, I figured that there's probably... seems to be like an old man with arthritis. Is a pretty big character.
You're like, man, I don't know who any of these people are, but these Tavery twins are going to be a big fucking deal. I can just tell.
Yeah, I think that they wind up getting butchered in the hallway of a hotel at some point. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
that's what happened. Just because I was curious because of this thing, real quick. Meaning of Salem, it's Arabic, peaceful, complete. Peaceful, comma, complete.
So what does Jerusalem mean?
Let's see what Jerusalem means.
Jerusalem
meaning. The name Shalem, whether it is a town or deity, is derived from the same root as the word shalom, meaning peace. So the common interpretation of the name is now the city of peace or the abode of peace.
Okay.
Jeru is city. So yeah, That's what that is. So
Nice.
opposite of that is apparently what was happening really in Salem. And Miles, have you read these books before?
I have, actually, yeah. I've read this one, and all the ones that came before this one, and also the next one.
But not the next one.
The next one I'm still working on. I swear to God, Krista, if you're listening right now, I know you're screaming. I will finish it soon.
She's not screaming. She's just sitting there with her hands balled into little fists going, you better fucking get on this, Miles. She's starting to lose her temper a little bit.
She's like, Krista comments on like everything I do on social media with, have you finished The Dark Tower yet?
Now you know how George R. R. Martin feels, Miles.
Look, I'm not getting paid to finish that book.
That's fair. Yeah, throw some money at it. So, yeah, this chapter is like, well, we have one chapter that is about, basically, it's about Roland having some arthritis, which is, I don't want to call it a death sentence, but it's like a spiritual death sentence for him a little bit. You know what I mean?
You're treating this super casually. This is not how I expected to come into this episode. You know, Roland kind of got sentenced to death.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just kind of happened. Like, I remember reading this for the first time and going like, wait, what? Like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we doing this?
It's such a Stephen King thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, like, he's just like, well, let me take away the one thing that this person prizes more than anything in the world. So
bad. It's just like, I mean, I guess it is that, but it's also like, I don't know. Didn't we already? One thing I really don't like in a lot of media, and it happens all the time, but it's like, you know, characters kind of going through recycled versions of the same arcs they've already been through.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like the whole thing with Roland losing his fingers was this.
Yes.
And now it's like, I don't know. I guess I also don't feel like the stakes really need to be upped here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, it's a weird place to drop it, for one thing. And I just don't think, like, it's not like I wasn't going to be invested in them finding the tower quickly. Like, I don't know. Do you think you needed to put a time limit on it or what? Like, I don't know. I have no idea.
I think, not that he needed to put a time limit on it, but I think when the whole theory behind why they want to find the tower is just, well, you know, eventually the world is going to spin into entropy. It doesn't feel like, it's like climate change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, you know, it's real and you know that it's a problem, but also you can't like see it and it's not really like immediately affecting you unless you're in Houston. And you could just kind of throw that plastic bottle in the regular garbage. Nobody cares. It's just the one bottle, right?
Right.
You know, like, I feel like it's just he needed something more personal and immediate that we could see actually unraveling to kind of push it a little bit more. And I will say that one of the things that tends to be the most effective for me in writing, but that I also get the most mad about, is when things are already terrible and they just throw another thing on top of it.
Yeah, it's like for seemingly no reason.
And it's like, I totally get what you mean about it. It's like, is this necessary? But at the same time, it really like works every time. Sort of like, I remember when I was a kid and I watched, and I remember I didn't even realize that I watched Star Wars when I was a kid in the theaters when it like was re-released until I watched it with Owen again. And then all of a sudden I had the one memory, the only thing I remembered was them in the trash compactor. And I'm already freaking out because the fucking walls are closing in, and all of a sudden there's like some trash snake underwater. And as a kid, I'm like, oh my God, they're already about to be crushed. Do we need the trash snake? Like, why are you doing this to me? I had way too much anxiety as a child to handle that. So yeah, that's what he's doing. The entropy is the walls closing in, and then Owen, you hear me? Roland is the trash snake.
Right.
Sorry, Owen, you're not a trash snake. I love you.
Can we just say, anytime we run into this, like anytime a piece of danger is added for no apparent reason, can we just say they're adding a trash snake?
There's another fucking trash snake thrown into this puddle.
They're fucking trash snake.
So yeah, I get what you mean, but I think it works. And I agree that it's sort of the same thing as what happened with his fingers, but like Roland's physicality is his entire source of strength, really. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not like he's not a smart and incisive guy, but he is able to back that up with physical threats. And I think that if he weren't, it would lose something, you know, like knowing things, but not being able to personally act on them himself. It would, forget it. He would lose it. Yeah, I would lose it.
His reflexes are definitely a thing, not only like in terms of physically being able to do things, but in terms of being able to respond to things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like it's definitely a horrible thing. Like it's a big deal. You know, which one wouldn't have gotten from your initial response, Natasha? But, you know.
Well, you know, I just try and act like it's not a big deal so that I don't betray my panic. Also, apparently, like, he has some cat spit that really works well. So, for now, cat spit that.
True.
That's me as a cat
spit being
spitting.
given to him by a hot 40-year-old lady.
Yeah, who's like, hey, what's up, trash snake's awake?
God, it's just like poked his head out, went back in.
Oh God, it only comes out at night. Yeah. So he's like, you know,
she tells him to drop his pants, and she's like, "Oh, I've got a bad feeling about this."
Oh my God, sir. And then she says, someone get this walking carpet out of my way. Inappropriate Star Wars quotations. All right. So he makes her promise not to say anything to anybody. Apparently, though, he's like unconsciously rubbing his hip and stuff, so I don't feel like that secret's going to be kept for very long.
Yeah, he's telling everybody it's like the light version of it, like just a little like rheumatiz or whatever he calls it, where he actually knows that it's going to get real bad. He basically has yet less than a year before he can even move, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, not sure how long that's gonna last. But you know what other secret isn't lasting very long right now?
Victoria's Secret.
No, they're in great shape. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't know. I was just like, what's a secret? What other secret is it? Is it about how these guys are knowing that somebody's about to give birth to a demon but not telling her that secret?
That's the one.
Listen,
that's the one I'm talking about.
I'm super annoyed about it.
I have no doubt. Well, I mean, yeah, Eddie's pretty annoyed about it, but like not annoyed enough.
I just want Eddie to not cave to Roland. That's the main thing right now. That's like what I'm kind of judging Eddie on, is like, I know that Roland is your Din. Is that what he says?
Din, yeah.
I know that Roland is Eddie's Din, but I need him to be on his wife's side. I need him to tell her what the fuck is going on, because this is a fucked up thing for him to know and not tell her. And I'm judging both of them a lot right now. And I am already not a huge fan of the demon pregnancy thing, because this trope is tired and lazy. But for both the men in her life to know and not be telling her about it adds a whole other level of, I don't fucking think so. So I would like to register an official complaint with Stephen King, put my name in the no pile, and say, I am not fucking here for this shit, dude, and you better clean it up, because I'm getting irritated.
There's kind of an attempt at explanation on Eddie's part, in that he says, like, he goes, it's like a way of salvaging kind of, fans like yourself and me. In terms of, he says, like, I wouldn't keep this secret or whatever for you, and I'm not going to keep this secret for all these kids, because fuck these kids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to keep the secret for the Rose. And, like, I guess for a second you're like, yeah, the Rose. And then you're like, the Rose?
No, I wasn't for a second. No, I was not. I was still feeling like, you can say what you want, Mr. Eddie, but I am going to believe that you are keeping this for Roland, no matter what you call it, because you're kind of afraid of him and want his approval. You know?
I do know that. Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to throw any under the bus like that, because, like, I believe he believes it.
I think if we pushed him, like, at all, it would fall apart. There are things that we let ourselves believe because we just don't touch it enough for it to, like, crumble, you know? And I think that's what he's doing, is he's like, he's got this really delicate structure of a lie that he doesn't really, like, even look at, because he knows as soon as he does, it's going to fucking evaporate.
Yeah, I feel like there's this bit here where it says, like, Roland says, I would always try to save her, and then he has, like, a brief image in his head of Jake falling under the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, that's once again, that's who he is. Eddie knows that. He pretends not to think about it. He tries not to think about it. And if you really confronted him about it, though, he would be like, hey, Eddie, you know who you're putting trust in, right? This guy. Like,
I feel like both of them are basically doing the same thing. Roland's lying about how I'm totally going to save her. Yeah. Even though in his mind, he's, like, imagining her falling down to her death. Yeah. And Eddie's like, no, I'm just doing this for the Rose. And meanwhile, he's watching Roland cry in disappointment as Roland sees him betray him.
Well, what's interesting is that Eddie actually puts up less of a fight here than even Roland expects him to.
Yeah, exactly.
Roland is ready for Eddie's smart-ass responses. And, like, it wouldn't matter if Eddie made them, but he doesn't even bother. I wonder if he's just, like, totally moved... If Eddie, like, at some level of his mind has totally moved on from, like, fighting this and just, like, resignation and justification.
I mean, it kind of worries me, though, right? Like...
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like it.
No, I mean, you worry about anyone who's... You worry about anyone who is kind of not being combative or not resisting something they would normally resist.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, he's, it's like, because you just worried about that because cults are a thing, basically.
Yeah, right. Eddie, like, I feel like there's, like, this sort of implication because of the way that Roland's like, oh, look at how much older he looks. He's really grown up. And then the fact that he, like, takes Roland's news in stride, that we're supposed to think that, like, Eddie's growing more mature in his responses to things. But this is, like, one of the situations where I feel like him freaking out would be completely justified and, in fact, a preferable reaction to what we actually get.
Yeah, it's treated as this act of maturity, where I think it's only that for somebody like Roland, where he's like, oh, good, he's moving into acceptance,
right?
Like, so yeah, from my perspective and your perspective, it's like, no, dude, why are you not, like, don't just roll over on this?
Yeah,
tell your wife she's pregnant with a demon baby.
I mean, I understand that's not an easy conversation to have, bruh.
Yeah,
like,
sure,
I hear you, but. For real.
And I ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you think she's going to find out, and if so, how?
Well, this was what I was about to say, because it's a super short-sighted plan, because what Roland's saying is that, oh, well, we can't tell her because May... What's it? May? Is that the name?
Mia.
Mia. that if she thinks that her baby's threatened, it will trigger something and she could like just take over her life, her body, basically, right? But what makes you think that if you like don't tell her, that won't happen? Because eventually she's going to start to notice some shit. Also, how about she has that baby and her brain can't handle that she's like now has a baby to take care of, whatever the fuck it looks like. And Mia doesn't just be like, oh, I'll handle it and jump forward anyway. There are a number of ways that Mia could be triggered to take over. And I feel like, informing her of the basic fact that she is pregnant is frankly the least worrisome of those possibilities.
Yeah, for sure. And what he just says is like, oh, well, we'll do something about it if Mia takes over.
Right.
It's like, you're going to wait for that, huh?
Yeah, we're just going to, not take out any insurance and just, oh, I know we're built on a fault line, but it's super weird that my house is now split in two pieces. So I guess I should have taken out some insurance on that. Like, dude, what if Mia remembers anything, which I'm not sure how that would work. If she remembers anything from Susanna's brain, what will she think if she realizes that she all knew this whole time and didn't tell her? Or if Susanna finds out, like, is there I can't think of anything that would cause a greater loss of trust in my partner than him knowing something like this about me and him not telling me. I can't think of anything. This is like more of a betrayal than anything I can imagine, frankly. It's like, it's almost like he's like sitting back and allowing me to be raped in a way. You know what I mean? He's just letting my body be used for something that I'm completely unaware of, and he is, and he's just letting it happen, and like, I'm not even informed about it. No. This is not okay in any sense, and I'm really, like, both of these guys can go suck a dick. Like, they are patting themselves on the back so much here that they're like maintaining objectivity and being rational about this. It's super gross. You're not being rational, guys. You are being really short-sighted and idiotic. How there is no way that this plan ends in anything but feeling absolutely totally betrayed. And that, I feel like the whole quartet is like based around not feeling that way, right?
Yeah, that's... Now that he's told Eddie, you feel even more like that. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, yes, that's what the quartet does, but like Roland is different, right? Roland is explicitly not one of the band,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, he's the leader of the band, but he's not one of them. Mm-hmm. So when he's keeping secrets, then it's a little bit more understandable. But when he's telling one of his charges about the secret and not telling the others, particularly the one that it most directly affects and relates to, that is something you should not be doing. And you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah, I'm just like, I just cannot understand how they think this is going to end. That's my main thing, is like, oh, we won't tell her because what if Mia takes over? What if Mia takes over? What do you mean, what if? Right. You guys continue treating this like you are, and that's inevitable. And what then? This bitch will fucking literally eat your entrails and not care.
Please continue ignoring the problem until something more happens. Yeah, no, it's nuts. So... Yeah, and like Roland is like, yes, I swear that we'll try to save her, but he doesn't fucking mean it. He knows he doesn't mean it.
No, he doesn't. And the fact that Eddie trusts that that's the thing. Does Eddie trust it? Or is he just being like doing the thing that I think he's doing with himself, where he's just like, yeah, my gut instinct is that you are not being sincere, but also it's really inconvenient for me to look at that right now, so I'm just not going to do it. Yeah. Which is what I really think is happening. So yeah, I'm just like this conversation just made me so fucking pissed. And there's
I don't blame
really something about it that makes me feel like Stephen King does not grasp how gross it is. You know, like I feel like we're meant to disapprove, but I don't think on the scale that I actually am. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I do. It does kind of feel that way. Yeah, I can see that. We have to move on, or we're never gonna get anywhere. So we meet at this point Frank and what's the one name? Francine. Frank and Francine, the Tavery twins, and the Tavery twins have two immediate attributes we can associate with them. One of which is that they're very good at drawing maps. And the other one is that they are beautiful children.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of spooky.
Huh?
It's kind of spooky.
Yeah, it's like it's not described in any sort of like, oh, look how beautiful they are way. It's like creepy beautiful.
Yeah, you know, it's just like, are they vampires? Like, what's going on here? But
yeah. Like the fact that their freckles are identical.
Yeah.
Like that's weird. But yeah, and they kind of think a minute here about how, you know, like probably next time they see these kids, one of them's going to be an idiot.
Yeah.
You know, one of them's going to be taken away because they are perfect age.
And yeah, that's what like Roland sort of figures the purpose was of bringing the two most gorgeous kids here. Like,
yeah, so
that it can really hit home. Wouldn't it be a shame? Wouldn't it be a shame? Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely the purpose here. And then we have a little moment. I guess we have to talk about it fucking again because we have this little moment between Eddie and Susanna here, where he you know, when you're there kissing your wife, and he's like, "I am lying to her about this thing," and he recognizes at the end of this that he definitely has never lied. He probably hasn't lied to her before, and if he has, not like this.
Yeah, this is the next level.
Yeah, the last line of the section is, "This was bad."
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Good job. Like, at least he's got some fucking self-awareness.
A little bit too late. Maybe don't, like, you know, agree to shit behind her back with a dude who has proven many a time that he is ruthless as fuck before thinking this through. But okay, sure.
Yeah. So yeah, they're rubbing their hip, and so this is when, after that happens, basically they go into the church. They go out and pick pokeberries, which apparently are like cranberries but sweeter.
Thank God.
Which is like the one thing we need cranberries to be, so that's fine. And they go into the church, and they're like, "All right, Father, we're gonna talk now. How'd you get here? How'd you get Black 13 here? Tell us your story." And he begins with the fact that he was an alcoholic.
Yeah, it was such a weird, because he starts it off and he was like, it was the drink, which really makes it sound like, you know, probably somebody spiked my drink with something that made me go toe dash. No, well, not exactly.
I mean, also, you know, it was like, when he says it was the drink, like, people who have read Salem's Lot know two things about Father Callahan, which the first thing is that he drinks, and the second thing is that he's in this vampire story.
Right.
So it's like, 'twas the drink. Well, which one do you mean there, buddy?
Get it.
Yeah.
I got my drink.
I think because it is in this section, right, that they essentially go over the plot of Salem's Lot.
I mean, yeah, I'm not sure, like, what the plot is, but this feels like a general summary. So,
yeah.
I'm figuring that I probably, you know, don't need to read it now. Not saying I don't need to read it really, but like I've been heavily spoiled at this point, it seems.
Yes. Although I should mention that what we learn here does not spoil the end of the story.
Okay.
Because Callahan goes out kind of like after about the 2/3 mark of the book, I would say, is when he goes out.
Okay.
So there's still a whole other part of the story, but like Salem's Lot is I would characterize it as a somewhat traditional but very well told vampire story. So you honestly weren't getting a whole lot of surprises here anyway. If you know the classic vampire story, you kind of know how this goes.
Mm-hmm.
But what really impresses me about it is the execution, the fact that the characters are all really well portrayed. You really do feel for all of them. The vampires are fucking terrifying.
Okay.
And just the way they work is terrifying. The horror of the book really works. And even though there's not a whole lot of surprises in the long run, there are plenty of shocking things that happen and just like kind of out of nowhere gut churning moments. Like if you like horror, it's a really fucking good book.
Okay.
This has been my 1 minute review of Salem's Lot, ladies and gentlemen. But I mean, this is like a whole bunch of this section is him telling them what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened basically was that there was a kid who disappeared,
Mm-hmm.
and people in general were disappearing, but Danny Glick was the kid who died, and there was a writer named Ben Mears, who Eddie mentions has read one of his books, which is a nice little point of continuity. And he was in love with Susan Norton, and the vampire took her because the vampire does that to the beautiful woman in the story. Like I said, it's a very traditional vampire story. And they, rounded up a posse to hunt it down,
Mm-hmm.
and Callahan... the vampire straight up, Barlow is the vampire's name. The vampire straight up challenges Callahan.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's like, "Hey man, your faith, you are weak in your faith, and you're gonna fuck up."
Yeah, which apparently, like, just saying that to him is enough.
I mean, yeah, it was absolutely true as well, and I mean, stop me if I'm skipping anything that you want to talk about more.
Not
But
here, not yet.
the bottom line is he was an alcoholic who was weak in his faith, and he held a holy symbol up to the vampire that was actually hurting him, because the vampire had another kid, I think.
Right.
What was his name? Mark Petrie. That's right. And the vampire was like, "All right, I'll tell you what. Put the crucifix down. I'll put this kid down, and we'll go at each other faith to faith."
Get it? Sounds like you said face to face, but with a lisp.
That was the joke.
It was faith to faith.
It was.
You
That
sound
was
like,
the.
You sound like Mike Tyson.
I'll tell you, man. Me and him, we're gonna go at face to face, man.
face.
Face to face.
Guys, I'm 11. Okay. Continue,
Anyway.
sir.
So Barlow puts the kid down. And before Callahan even puts his cross down, the light that came from it is fading.
Mm-hmm.
And Barlow just like comes up to him and like takes the cross out of his hands and bites him.
Now, see, this is the thing so Barlow bites him, and then Barlow forces him to bite him back. Right?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't say Barlow bites him. That's not explicitly said.
That might. Oh, you're right. That might not have happened, actually. God, it's been a long time since I read it. No. I guess he doesn't make Callahan bite him. He makes Callahan drink from him.
So that's why he doesn't turn into anything. It's just that he has this
Correct.
weird, like, elevated sense. Okay.
Correct. My apologies for that. But yeah, which is, obviously the drinking metaphor.
Right.
Continues. And Callahan, that's basically how Callahan goes out of Salem's Lot, is as this broken man who just like had his faith directly tested and was not nearly up to the task.
Mm-hmm.
And he tries to go to a church, and he can't get in.
Yeah, it's basically like it's been electrified. Like he gets jolted and like thrown back when he tries to touch it. That church is like, nah, son, I don't need you. I feel really bad for him in this moment. Like, it's a fucked up thing that somebody's, like, something circumstantial that could happen to you that you didn't. I guess it's meant to be like, if your faith was strong enough, you wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. But it just feels like, you know, the usual thing that I always have trouble with, which is God has turned his back on somebody for something that they really didn't have control over.
I mean, that's God for you. Mm-hmm. I mean, not to impugn anyone's faith, but that happens a lot in not just Christianity. Pretty much every religion. Mm-hmm. Is like, well, you done fucked up, even though you didn't really mean to, and you couldn't have helped it yourself.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I think there's a lot of implication here that, like, the alcoholic stuff wasn't helping with that. Mm-hmm. So, and he does, you know, I think obviously, like, you know, sometimes it's like, well, there was a vampire, what are you gonna do?
Right, yeah.
But I'm glad that King doesn't lean on that for his portrayal of Callahan's weakness, because the alcoholism thing really does drive it home a lot more effectively. Is that because he can't stop drinking. That's
my favorite part, honestly, of this whole thing, is how he tricked himself into thinking that he was drinking because he was having a spiritual crisis.
Yes.
And in fact, he was having a spiritual crisis because he was drinking.
Right.
Which is really, like, there is nothing that an addict wants less than to admit the substance abuse is the main issue.
Yes.
Like, that, we will avoid that at all costs. OMG. You have no idea the kind of somersault, like, rationalization that will happen in order to keep from facing a very simple fact, because it is so much harder. Like, for most people, it'd be like, well, you know, it's the drinking. Simple answer, really straightforward. I mean, aren't you glad that we've just pinned this down? That's what it is. Right. But for us, it's the opposite, where you're like, no, let it be anything else. This is the thing. This is the one thing. Please don't take this away from me. Oh my God. No, that is not simple. That isn't simple. That's what? Like,
well,
panic.
In the moment, I think for a lot of people, it doesn't just feel like, it doesn't feel just complicated or like not simple. It feels counterintuitive and illogical. Mm-hmm. It's like, what do you mean? Mm-hmm. Like, how could this possibly be the problem? This is the only thing getting me through my day.
Yep.
You know, like quitting smoking was kind of like that. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, and I got several friends who I believe are dealing with this kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And you know, and I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine last night, in fact, and we were talking about a mutual friend of ours, and he was just like, yeah, you know, he was like, I couldn't even talk to him anymore because he kept insisting that the alcohol was necessary. It was the only thing that was necessary. And my friend was like, look, dude, it's the only thing that's not, actually.
Yeah. And
it's the source of your problem. And if you continue to lie to yourself and me, then I'm just going to leave. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And it's like, the thing is, when you're in that situation, when you're that in the middle of the addiction, it's not a lie. You genuinely can't see it. And you're lying to yourself. Like, you could say that, but I don't think most people in the beginning are even lying to themselves. I really think they don't believe it. And I mean, for me, it's food. At the end of the day, a hard day, I want to go to Popeyes and get some fried chicken and some biscuits, probably stop at the store and pick up some cupcakes, get a big old bottle of like Coke Zero, because Lord knows we can't have sugar. We can't have regular soda. I'll just eat these Popeyes. And that is what I look forward to calm my ass down after a shitty day. And the idea of having a shitty day without that to get me through at the end of the day is so depressing. Just straight up depressing. Like, not even just scary or anything. It's just like, don't make me do that.
Yeah.
And yet, so much of me having a shitty day often centers around me feeling bad about myself, about me feeling physically terrible, which is probably partially because I ate like shit. And generally, like, a general malaise, one could say, which it's a cycle. And it took me so long, and I'm still really grasping. It's not handled at all, but it took me so long to understand how much the eating was a sedative and how it insinuates itself. You really start eating is a particularly tough one because you can stop smoking, you can stop drinking, you can't stop eating. Right. And so you have to figure out how to balance on this knife's edge without becoming so militant that you start to cause a cycle in another direction.
Yep, for sure.
But yeah, I thought this description of addiction felt like this was Stephen King talking. This was him looking at his own life, because he has struggled with this so acutely. And I can't help but wonder how much of the time he really thought, no, I'm just, because some of the descriptions in his on writing autobiography, mm-hmm. he describes how he was denying that he was still using, and his family had to upend a garbage can from his office in front of him and show him the 3 empty bottles of cough syrup and the tissues filled with blood from snorting coke and then blowing his bloody nose, mm-hmm. and things like that. And that it was not something that he was willing to face as a problem until there was literal physical evidence in front of him. And this whole description felt this guy's coming from this is a surrogate for the author for a second here, Yeah. I just felt like that really came through, and I like it. I'm always interested for those personal notes,
Yeah, and again, this is, unlike the other books that we've read so far, this was written, after the accident and after he was forced to really grapple with some of these things. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a decent amount of him working through that in all 3 of these books, mm-hmm. that come after, but this one I think in particular, and I think you get a lot of that. That's definitely why he was able to write so vividly and I think so accurately about this particular thing.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But yeah, so what we were saying before is that this vampire makes him drink his blood, but the vampire doesn't bite him. So he gets this weird ability to spot vampires. He gets a sixth sense, a third eye opening kind of thing. Yep. But they cannot see him in return, which is really I assumed that they could see him in return because honestly, the whole time I thought that he was a 3rd tier vampire, type 3. I guess.
Oh, a type 3, yeah.
Yeah. Because since it's not explicitly said that he's bitten, I was just a little bit unsure where, you know what I mean? I was just kind of wait, hold on, what's going on here? And it wasn't until he says, they couldn't see me, though, that I was oh, okay. So he wasn't mm-hmm. bitten. He's not one of them. It's a whole other weird thing going on.
Right.
Which makes me want to know, there's got to be others out there that are like him, right? He's not the only one. But
you wouldn't think.
So far, we haven't met anybody else.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why I was a little bit confused going back as to whether or not he'd been bitten or not, because it almost feels like he has been. He's definitely been changed.
Yeah, most
in
definitely.
some fundamental way. This is also the part where we first hear about these lovely people, the Hitler brothers.
Yo, yeah. I did not know about these guys.
Is that a real thing?
I'm looking that up right now.
Look it up. I actually don't know if it was a real thing or not. I have no idea.
The Hitler brothers are a pair of neo-Nazi brothers. This is in the Dark Tower wiki. Hitler Brothers is a 1997 Indian Malayalam film. 3 quiet brothers, relatives of Hitler. An article from the New York Times in 2006. I don't think this is a real thing. No.
I don't think so either.
No.
I would be really surprised if like, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a thing, but that name, I don't know, man. I feel like even fucking neo-Nazis dressed up a little bit more than that.
Right.
You know, like they'll call themselves the Sons of the White Dawn or some shit, but like, I'm not sure they're straight up putting Hitler in their name.
But this is the kind of thing, since it's the, like, you know, the newspaper that said that, I like to think they call themselves that. And the newspaper's just like, no, you're the Hitler Brothers. It's fine.
That's right.
We've got this covered already, you guys. You don't get to pick your own nickname. Thanks, but thanks for
the
playing.
For the state doing their job for once.
Right.
So at the beginning here, they're just like kind of something he's reading about in the paper.
Mm-hmm.
The meat of the story at this point is Callahan finds he's homeless, he's jobless, he's drunk. Is his situation.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause like the whole vampire lack of faith thing combined with the alcoholism just really sends him down a bad way.
Yeah, it does.
He just got on the Greyhound and just like bailed and just has no idea who he is or where he's going. All he wants is a drink. Anyway, he while looking for a job with Manpower, because he can't find the fucking Manpower building because he's too drunk.
Mm-hmm.
So he runs into this place called Home. And Home is basically a shelter for alcoholics.
Mm-hmm.
And he meets this dude named Lupe.
Mm-hmm.
And Lupe basically is one of the big wigs behind Home. And they take him in and ask him if he wants to work.
Oh, that's so
and he's
sweet.
just like super thankful. He said, he asked me if I wanted to work and I started to cry. He took that as a yes.
Yeah, I like this in particular got me. Like, first of all, he describes that it's a wet shelter, which I never thought of this as an issue, but of course it would be. That there are plenty of shelters that will not take you if you drink or have been, or if you are drunk in the moment. There are shelters that will take you if you have had a couple hours since your last drink. And then there are places like this, which will take you, they basically section you off and let you detox. But there's a really awful side effect, which is that women are so likely to be raped that they don't sequester them at all.
Yeah, he mentions that here, and that is fucked up.
Yep. That they are left to die on the street rather than be brought inside and risk rape, which is something that is still a problem in shelters today. There was actually here in Texas, I think, just last year, there was a story circulating about a woman who, like the man who ran the shelter, who I think was a pastor, he kicked all of the women out of the shelter entirely and made it a men's only shelter because he felt that he didn't want, not only, he didn't even cite like instances of rape. He felt that having a co-ed shelter increased the risk of premarital sex. And that, so we'd rather you be homeless than fucking, basically. Which is just, I guess the men don't have to worry about. They can have a shelter, and that's fine.
Sure.
But,
Sure, we fuck responsibly. If there's one thing we know about men, it's that men fucking is never a problem.
I really have reached a point in my life where I have so little tolerance anymore for this kind of horse shit that I'm waiting for something to happen anywhere in my vicinity so that I can just let it all out. Because the interview with the guy who made this decision, because it was a pretty big deal when it happened, was so disgusting. And he was so completely not only unrepentant, but absolutely no idea what people were so upset about. Genuinely didn't get it. Just, like
nuts.
he thought that he was doing what was best for everybody, and you would all see it in the end. Just wait, kind of thing, you know, like you'll thank me later, sort of attitude. And guys, I just have. I've nearly had it. I'm almost gonna break. Oh, I just want to make sure that if I break, it happens somewhere productive.
I hope when you break, it at the very least happens like while you're being recorded. That's
yeah.
Anyway, so this is while he's working at the shelter, hanging out with Lupe and Rowan McGregor, this other guy who works there, is when he first starts figuring out that he has the ability to see these vampires. And you mentioned the type 3s, and we should probably lay out what this distinction is. So he says that type 1s are rare. Barlow was a type 1. They live very long lives and may spend extended periods, 50 years, 100, maybe 200, in deep hibernation. When they're active, they're capable of making new vampires, what we call the undead. These undead are type 2s. They are also capable of making new vampires, but they aren't cunning. So basically, he describes type 2 vampires as having basic, zombie intelligence, essentially.
Yeah, just slightly above zombie intelligence. But
a little
basically,
bit more.
They are slaves to their thirst. And so they do really risky shit. And it shortens their lifespan a great deal.
Mm-hmm. And then type 2 vampires can either create other type 2s or they create type 3s, which are just the weakest kind. They can't create more vampires, but they just feed. And then we start having the conversation about AIDS.
Yeah, this is rough.
Yeah.
It's all, before anybody gets what this is.
Right, we're talking about the 70s here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gay
cancer.
Yeah, it's like gay cancer. They call it like a gay, a gay risk related disease.
Gay related immune deficiency.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it's just so strange to think back on this era and how utterly abandoned the gay community was. There was nobody who gave any shits.
Nobody gave a fuck.
It is super, super gross and horrifying to think about, especially considering our country's we just listen. We embarrass ourselves frequently, and this is just another instance. Let's add it to the fucking pile.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the way that he talks about this, and the way that he's in love with a man, and yet he cannot admit that he's gay. He doesn't. First of all, the fact that the word "gay" is what's used to describe someone who's homosexual, he's just really, which I think is super funny. So he keeps calling himself queer. But he calls himself that with this sort of asterisk, well, not really. I mean, I thought women were hot too. I'm yeah, you're bi, dude. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
But he just doesn't seem to be able to reconcile that, which is understandable because bisexuality is something that people just don't like to admit is a thing.
Well, especially if they're older men who are also priests.
Well, I just mean society in general.
Oh, sure, yeah.
We like it. If you're gay, we get that. If you're straight, we get that. If you can go either way, we don't like it. You need to be in one of the boxes safely where we understand. Yeah. And not this big amorphous gray area where, it's just really kind of hysterically funny to me because there's some of my queer friends are have been talked to by other friends well, I would just be so afraid that I would get cheated on more easily.
Huh.
If I was dating someone who's bi and I'm yo, if they're going to cheat on you, it doesn't matter if they're bi or if they're straight. They're going to do that shit. Whether they're bi is nothing to do with it. I don't know what.
Yeah, people have I don't know. I will never understand why people feel the need. Everything has to, if you run into something that you haven't experienced, doesn't match up with anything in your experience, you can't accept it as being real.
Yep.
Or valid. And it's on Smash Fiction, Dan Mulcairn and I are the only straight men on that show.
Okay.
And there's 6 regular hosts, I think at this point we can safely say. And Dan is married to one of the other ones on the show, and they're married, and she's queer.
Mm-hmm.
And another one of the women on the show is also married and queer. And people would not understand that.
Yep.
It's like, and we just have, one of the reasons I love that show is because it's such a really wonderful cross section of that kind of community, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I love hearing their perspectives on various things. But the idea that I would dismiss anything they have to say just because I am, mostly certain of my sexuality.
Mostly. I think that's fair.
It gets shaky in the presence of Patrick Stewart, and there are some others, but aside from that, I'm pretty sure.
It really is bi erasure is just a real problem in general.
Yeah.
And it's really, really common on television for a character to have dated someone of the opposite sex, but then they date somebody same sex and the show decides, oh, they're gay now. Instead of maybe acknowledging that they're just bi and they actually did have a real relationship earlier and it wasn't just a stepping stone. Or they'll be gay in the initial part of the show and then they'll have them turned straight by somebody, even though it's not explicitly said. It's sort of oh, well, she was a lesbian initially, but now she's dating this one guy, and she just seems to be into guys now forever.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's not even bringing fucking coding into it, and how you can always tell whether someone's supposed to be gay without explicitly being gay, and how they're usually a villain, and there's a lot of weird hangups with that in American media. Basically, Callahan essentially fell in love with Lupe, whose last name, Roland notes with interest, is Delgado.
Yo, he just he gets that look on his face that means that he's shocked, and nobody would know that it's his shocked face unless they knew him, and his expressionless ass face that he wears the rest of the time. Oh, yep. Roland. He's such a pain in the ass. My tolerance for Roland also goes down sometimes, it gets me so irritated. Just why you can't show your surprised face, Roland? Really?
No.
I can't let anybody we all know, everybody in this room but the pastor or priest knows what the Delgado name means to you. Not showing it on your face doesn't mean that it's any less obvious to everybody here. But sure, keep a lid on that because that matters. Whatever, dude.
Mm-hmm. So Callahan one day realizes that Lupe has been bitten by a vampire.
Right.
And I believe contracted AIDS because of that, right?
It's not until later, probably, but it's hard to know. But yeah, the initial thing is when somebody's been bitten, he describes first spotting another vampire because it takes some time for this sort of ability to surface. And when it does, it manifests as this really strong scent of, what does he say? Hot metal and rotting onions, which sounds god awful. And there's a blue glow around them. And the blue glow is also on the people that they bite. So he sees Lupe coming toward him, and Lupe has this blue glow on his neck. And
he smells the smell.
Yeah.
And he sees the marks for a second.
He basically faints. And Lupe wakes him up and is like, yo, are you all right? What the hell was that? And he's like, nothing. No, what? Oh, I just really tired.
Yeah.
And apparently being bit once is a beacon. Now you get hunted by all of them because they apparently he's not sure why that is, but he's it's almost like dogs that all have to pee on the same hydrant. Or maybe it just is a mark that you're like easy prey.
Yeah, they're marked. I mean, for whatever reason, I think either of those are probably likely.
But yeah, so now he's gets, stalked by these things fairly often, to the point that, I mean, it's happening often enough that he stumbles across it happening by accident right in the back alley behind the building.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the one where he loses it, goes inside, gets a fucking cleaver.
Yep.
He buries it in the back of this vampire's head. The vampire is so entranced in his feeding that he doesn't even notice him there. And even when the cleaver is sunk into the back of his skull, he just straightens up and adjusts his coat and starts to walk away like, something disturbed me. I guess I will head home now. Not fucking realizing that his fucking skull is caving in the back.
Right.
And when he dies, he disappears. And he leaves his teeth and his hair and his clothes and jewelry behind.
Yeah.
It's just like his body, flesh part that disappears, which is the weirdest thing ever.
It's fairly normal for vampires, except for the fact that the hair and the teeth are still there.
Yeah, it's but it doesn't even that. It's not even that they turn to dust.
Right.
He's just gone. There's not even dust. His clothes just look like they got left there by somebody.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know. And of course, this all happens while Elton John somewhere is singing "Someone Save My Life Tonight."
Oh my God, that was so. Listen. There are times when Stephen King can lay it on a little bit thick, and that was one of those times where I'm just like, I
agree. But I can also totally see that scene playing out in front of me with that song playing, and it makes so much sense.
I had an eyebrow raised. I'll just say that. I was side-eyeing him a little bit.
All right. So yeah, he nails that fucking vampire. That is his first kill.
Mm-hmm.
Of a type 3. He takes the vampire's wallet.
Yes.
Which I enjoyed.
I think that's just sensible. Good job.
Yep. He takes all his shit.
Yeah.
Takes his watch and his ring and yeah. And part of this is him trying to clean up after himself so nobody wonders.
Mm-hmm.
But part of it is just hey, this is practical.
Yeah.
What are they gonna do? Just sit there?
Right. And he puts a lot of the clothes he puts into the bins inside too, just to hide it. But yeah, so this eventually Lupe gets sick, and it's so awful. Lupe is not even aware what's happening to him. They don't know enough about this yet, and nobody wants to know. And Lupe actually after they hold hands, he asks them to go wash their hands just in case.
Yeah.
It's oh God, imagining about yourself that you are so contaminated. I just can't imagine. And once Lupe finally dies, because they keep thinking oh, he's going to be fine, until they go see him in the hospital and they're like, holy shit, no, he is not going to be fine.
Not fine.
And
the
Lupe,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, and once Lupe finally passes away, initially Callahan's able to keep from immediately drowning himself in booze, but it doesn't last for very long, because then he starts to see dead people. And I think that would put just about anybody off. And so he runs into a bar and gets wasted, and then starts to be this vigilante vampire killer.
Well, because the other thing that he realizes after that first time is, oh shit, this is fucking easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're so it's not like you even have to sneak up on them. He makes all the regular noise that he would make if you were just bringing the trash out, and this thing doesn't notice him there. So you don't have to be sly about it. You just walk right on up, and they are too fucking busy.
Yeah,
that is some shit.
So, he's been kind of just going around, just wasting vampires when he finds them, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically been his MO. There's a brief conversation here about because like while Callahan's telling them all this, they all keep thinking like, oh, he's gone Todash.
Right.
Like in some way, he's gone Todash. And there's a moment after Lupe dies where he hears the chimes.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees what the vagrant dead.
Right.
And they all recognize this.
Right.
You know.
And the weird shadow, like he feels like it's getting dark around him. That's another thing that they all sort of look knowingly at one another about.
Mm-hmm. So that happened right after Lupe died. And it's time for a drink.
Yep. Yeah, so this is like, and I'm not sure that I agree with them about the Todash thing, honestly.
I don't know that I do either until that point. Like, that was clearly Todash.
It's just, why did they assume that that was what was happening initially? It just feels like he's in his world seeing things that nobody else can see. Why is Todash where their minds all go? I don't really understand initially. Like, once the chimes come into the story, but that's not until later, and they're already thinking that. I don't really understand what... That seems to me to be quite a leap and not really that logical a leap.
Yeah. I have no idea, honestly. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me why they would make that connection.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, so he starts to apparently gain a reputation because the next thing he knows, he goes to the park where he goes often, and like graffitied on one of the benches is he has a burned hand.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes somewhere else, and they're like, we think his name might be Collins. Things like this.
It's a pet poster. It says, "Have you seen our Irish setter? He is a stupid old thing, but we love him. Burned right forepaw. Answers to the name of Kelly, Collins, or Collingwood. We will pay a very large reward."
Well, that one, but the first one that like is spray painted on, or it's chalked in on the ground.
Oh yeah, it just says his hair is mostly white now, and his name might be Collingwood.
Might be Collingwood, right?
Yeah.
So it just sort of amps up where they are starting to know who he is and what he looks like, and they're starting to organize to like look for him and almost have his name figured out. And
so this is actually a thing that happens in the short story Hearts in Atlantis, incidentally.
Is that by Stephen King?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never even heard of it.
Huh? It is a book that's primarily about like generational responses to Vietnam.
Okay.
It's interesting in certain ways, but it's a collection of his short stories essentially, but the first one is like more of a novella. I was informed by the Dark Tower spoiled people but are not spoiling me Facebook chat. I think that's what it's called, something like that. That this was something I was informed by one person on that chat that I should read this first story in Hearts of Atlantis, and other people were like, "No, you don't actually have to. Like, it's fine." But that was like after I read it. It was kind of a slog.
Yeah, when you just described what it's about, I'm like already asleep. No thanks.
Well, that's not even like what I read was like the first third, maybe.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my god, where is this going and why isn't it getting there?
Yeah, I hear you.
But one of the things that does happen in that story is this kind of thing. The wanted posters that referring to specific people in vague but still creepily specific terms.
Right.
And Callahan here says, these are soldiers of the Crimson King.
Yeah, and they all sort of straighten up when they hear him use those words. They're like, oh, wait, what now? Oh, that changes things a little bit.
I love Callahan's line when they all react. He's like, you've heard of the gentleman, I see.
Right? Yeah, I feel like this is something that I don't want to know about. Also, this somehow makes me wonder if I feel like maybe Jim Butcher like was biting a little bit, because he has 3 different courts of vampires in his books.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a Red King. Which, you know. Come on, dude. If that is what you're biting off of, just you could have, done a little bit better than that, but okay.
I'm not a Jim Butcher fan, so I'm prepared to believe the worst. But I think that might be a little of a stretch. But I'm sure he'd probably say he was inspired by it, right? I'm really
because it's similar. In the 3 courts have in some ways some similar, the Black Court is older and is able to hibernate for long periods of time. The Red Court are actually kind of like monsters underneath that wear a flesh mask to look human. And then there's the White Court, which just feeds on sex and fear, but they can't turn people. They can kill them easily enough, but they can't turn them. So I feel like he did a play on it, and the Red King thing is just another. But what do I know?
Makes sense. Anyway, the point is that Callahan sits down and he starts thinking to himself, "I feel like there's a Type 1 here. Mm-hmm. I feel like my activities have drawn a Type 1 vampire here." Mm-hmm. And he says, "I found it comforting to know my brain, booze-soaked or not, was still capable of some logic."
Yeah, his theory is that there's some house in Salem's lot that drew one there, which is Stephen King.
The Marston house.
Stephen King loves evil buildings.
Dude loves haunted houses, for sure.
What is the deal? I feel almost like you made me want to, pull back on that a little bit. You go to that well an awful lot. But okay, sure. But, yeah.
Yeah, Callahan decides to skip town. And he finds this footbridge over the Hudson River that leads to New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And Eddie's like, "No, that's not a thing."
Oh my God, what was that about? I felt like that was so snotty.
They've been doing this whole thing, throughout this entire story. People have been, Eddie has been the one going "Oh yeah, well, this is what it's like in the future."
Right?
Yep, we call them gays now, And now it just he's like, "No, you're wrong."
I just Eddie, sit down. Who are you? You don't know what the fuck. Get out of here with that. I was irritated with him.
There's this footbridge, and he says, in fact, there's a sign halfway across that says, "Bicentennial repairs completed in 1975 by Lamerck Industries," which is the name on Andy's chest, and was in Lud, as Eddie reminds them. Lamerck Industries keeps showing up.
Yep.
And he basically starts wandering these, as he calls them, secret ways, and as Eddie calls them, Toadash turnpikes.
So is the idea here that he, because of drinking this blood, he's able to see walkways that nobody else can see?
I don't know why he's able to see them. I do feel like it's kind of a special thing, though.
It's so weird. I'm just really, I feel like I'm watching Twin Peaks or something where I'm just kind of what?
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, he's gonna leave and go down these secret ways, but he wants to say goodbye to some people first. Mm-hmm. And this is the part of the story where he starts crying again. Mm-hmm. He wants to tell his friends that he got drunk.
Yeah.
And that he is weak and say goodbye.
That was the other one. Say goodbye, because just leaving without saying goodbye feels too much like I don't exist. Mm-hmm. Which really, that one hit me a little bit. I was just not, in a particularly personal way, because I don't... well, maybe a little bit. Because I did sort of leave Philly that way. It was just sort of an overnight. I didn't say goodbye to anybody. I didn't even tell people
really
I was going. No.
Really?
And I just basically snapped. Like, things had been going really badly with Brendan and I. We had a huge fight. He found out that I'd been talking to Owen, and I basically was like, do you want me to, like, leave and give you the house for the night? And he was like, sure. And Owen was like, I can buy you a plane ticket. You can come down here. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Yep. Let's do this. And I just got on a plane that night and I bailed. And this is what I mean when I talk about, I could have handled things a little bit better here. I could have been smarter about this whole thing and not let it turn into one of the worst things I've ever done to a person. But I didn't. I did the thing that I did. And I didn't say anything to Brendan. I didn't say anything to my mom. I didn't say anything to my friends in Philly. I just left. And there was a definite freedom to it, but there is a strange sensation to knowing that you can take off and that nobody will notice for a long time. That feels sort of like shitty.
You remember, did you ever see the film Adaptation?
Yes. A long time ago.
There's a moment in that movie where Chris Cooper's character, who's the toothless guy who finds the plants, the orchids, is talking to the author, whose name I can't remember.
Okay.
But he's telling her about how, like, he was doing really well, and he was in a car, like, with his wife and his mom and his uncle, and he got him into a car accident, and his mom and his uncle died. Mm-hmm. And then his wife divorced him. Right. And the reporter says, well, I think if I'd almost died, I would divorce my husband too. And he asked why, and she says, well, because I could. Because it's like the one time where you can do something like that and no one can judge you because you almost died.
Maybe that was part of it because, like, right before this, my father and my grandmother died. Mm-hmm. And I don't have much family. Like, my family was my mom, my dad, my grandma. And 2 out of 3 were gone in the space of, like, 3 months.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely what, like, pushed me to start just behaving in ways that were otherwise really out, not even necessarily out of character, but just more reckless, you know? Because I was just like, fuck it, who cares? You know, in a lot of ways. But yeah, there's just, I don't know, there's just something about a lot of parts of his story that, like, feel, such an outrageous story in so many senses because of it being about vampires. But in a lot of ways, it feels just like a really human story, you know?
Yeah, I really feel like it's less about vampires and just happens to have vampires in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know? Anyway, and there's more to it, but at this point we get interrupted.
Yes.
Because Rosalita has brought them a letter from Eisenhart, which is the place where Jake is staying, because it's where the Sleitmans, where Ben Sleitman is the overseer, and Benny Sleitman also hangs out.
They're sending the hobbits to us? Sorry, I could not think that every time I read it.
Oh God!
What?
It's just painful.
It's painful because it's such a good joke? Is that what you mean?
Yes. It's going to be in my head all night. Oh, God. Well, they're taking the gunslingers to Eisenhart, that's for sure. I can't even do it. Anyway, so basically, like, the chapter ends with them being like, that was an interruption. We're not ready to go see Eisenhart yet. Let's go have some lunch and we'll continue the tale.
Yeah, it was really weird. Am I wrong?
I mean, I feel like it is really just like King was like, shit, this chapter's getting long.
Right, a little bit. You know, he's like,
I need to find an organic place to end this.
She's like, sorry to interrupt, but these people want to see you. Oh, yeah, we're not doing that. We're going to do this other thing. Right. Okay, well, why didn't you just have her? Okay, sure. Well,
yeah. It just means that we can wait until next week to finish or to do the priest's tale continued, Highways in Hiding.
Yeah, I'm really like, because they keep saying, "Oh, we went Todash. You went Todash, Father," and I'm just like, I'm not getting that yet, though. Like, because the implication initially I had thought was that the Todash was happening more easily because they were near the, black, what do you call it, orb?
Yeah, Black 13, yeah.
But it doesn't sound like he was anywhere near it then. So what would have been causing that then? Like, I don't know. There's just a lot that I don't really get yet.
Yeah, that's bizarre to me, and I feel like he's playing a little bit fast and loose with that.
Right?
I still like, or honestly, like, they could be wrong.
I mean, it could be. It's just that they're all thinking it, and the way he's writing it is such that it feels like he's trying to get me to, like, agree with them.
Yeah, it's like this is their intuition.
Yeah.
And their intuition's usually right. But yeah, this is a pretty lengthy aside.
Mm-hmm.
Catching up with what Father Callahan, of all people, has been doing since we last saw him in Salem's Lot, which was written significantly before this book was written. So I think it's weird because in some ways it almost feels like author's notes.
Yeah, I see that.
Mm-hmm. Like just like baked into the book here. And it definitely interrupts the main thrust of our story for now. But we can finish this up next week, and then I think one chapter should be fine for next week.
Okay.
And then we'll have a few more. We'll have some other stuff going on, and then later we have the priest's tale concluded, so
right.
You get to go back to it. And then that's all we have to do for that, and the story proper gets started. So.
All right.
Continues, I should say, not get started. I don't want to be like, the story doesn't really begin until part 3.
Fucking scare the shit out of me, why don't you?
Right.
All right, so yeah, I'm feeling good about this. I want to say hi to new patrons real quick before we wrap this up. Victor Chan, Leah Thompson, Jason S. Lewis, Caitlin Lavery, Amber Camacho, Barbara Anderson, Carrie DeWalt, Cassandra Hall, and Jeff Bankert all became patrons this past week. So thank you very much to all of you guys.
You guys are awesome.
And a few of you are $5 and up, which means that you're going to get access. I just recorded Firewalk with Me, the Twin Peaks movie episode today with Maggie. There goes a movie I will never watch again. Holy shit. And
because it's bad or because it's freaky?
The first part of it I didn't like too much, the first half hour. After that, it becomes a brilliant movie, but it's so well done, and it is about such disturbing subject material that it's too well done. Like, I can't do that to myself again. It's really, really effective, and the acting is amazing. But yeah, I can't. Nope, not happening again. So yeah, we just finished recording on that, and then we're going to start on season 3 of Twin Peaks next week, which I'm pretty excited about. It's going to be weird, I think. And then after that, I don't really have definite plans on what I'm going to be doing for patrons only stuff. So y'all have to stay tuned on that. And also some of you have donated on the GoFundMe for the trip to, Universal. Those of you who have, make sure to check your email because I sent out the first of 3 bonus episodes of me and Rashawn covering the Harry Potter movies. Fair warning, we do not like them. And hopefully you're okay with that. And yeah, they're real bad guys. And yeah, the first one's has gone out already. The next one will go out in early October, and then the one after that in early November, and then we have our trip. So I'm pretty stoked because we are at $2,600 out of 3,000. We are very close to our goal. And we can use all the help we can get, frankly. So thank you all for that. And if you'd like to donate and get access to those, go to gofundme.com/unspoiledhpworld.
I think, man, can I just say real quickly, I know that you and Rashawn are still working your way through those movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a part in the second to last film, Deathly Hallows Part 1,
okay,
that pissed a lot of people off because it wasn't in the books. Y'all know what I'm talking about if you've seen that film. There was a specific scene that wasn't in the books that really made a lot of people kind of angry.
Okay.
And it's and I think it's the single best scene in the entire series.
Okay.
It's literally the only scene in those series has ever made me feel anything beyond the superficial.
Huh. Okay.
Like, I was legitimately moved by this moment.
Does it involve dancing?
It does.
Okay. Yeah, I don't feel you on that, but
That's
okay.
fine. That's fine.
Yeah, that is something that in the moment I wasn't angry about it. It wasn't something that I was like, why did they do this? Which is something that I felt on many of the other movies.
Yes.
But I was kind of like, this is sort of not feeling right to me.
I don't blame anyone for feeling that way about it. For me, it was like it really hit me for some reason. So that's like my favorite part of the whole series.
That movie
of
though is my favorite of the movies.
It's a good movie.
Everybody hates on that one because they say it's super boring, and I'm like, listen, guys, I don't know if you read the book, but it was kind of a drag, and that nailed the whole atmosphere of that book. So
it's so amazing to me how they made the best movie out of that part.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and I think it's because it was slow, and they were forced to slow down because of the actual, they couldn't cram everything in. Listen, you want to hear more about that, guys? Donate to the GoFundMe. I'll send you the link to the Dropbox that'll have all 3 episodes in it by the end of November, and it'll be super duper. And also, if you want to become a patron, go to patreon.com/unspoiledpod, or no, patreon.com/unspoiled, facebook.com/unspoiledpod, Twitter at Unspoiled Show, Instagram at Unspoiled Podcast, and I am on Instagram at The Glamour Junkie, and on Twitter at... What am I at? Natasha Writing. I lose track. Okay.
I was about to give it to you.
Go ahead, sir. What do you got?
Well, of course, beyond this show, I'm also very happy to be part of the... mostly happy, part of the patrons-only Game of Thrones coverage, which we just wrapped up. So if you're a patron of Unspoiled, you can hear me also on that. As well as I'm going to say the most recent book club, or has it come out yet?
I posted it to patrons, and it will be out for everybody else on Monday.
Yeah, so Natasha and I spent a couple hours talking about Rebecca, and it was super fun. I had a really good time recording that, and I think it's a good episode, so you can check that out. That's also for patrons, yeah. Or at first, I guess you can. If you're not a patron, you can get it soon.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Less than a week.
Yeah. So check that out. Also, you can check out, as I previously mentioned, the Smash Fiction podcast, which is where me and my very funny, very awesome friends put fictional characters into combat of some kind with each other. Not necessarily actual combat, but like challenges and races and fights and all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. And we see who would win. We have a very humorous debates about it. The judge makes a decision. It is binding and irrevocable. So if you ever wondered who would win in the fight between these two fictional characters, the answer lies before you. It is absolutely the right answer every single time, and that is a lie. But it's a really fun show. You can check it out on iTunes, Apple Podcasts.
I keep forgetting that they changed that. I'm just calling it iTunes.
Fucking iTunes. Y'all know what iTunes is.
They can get over
it. It's on iTunes. And all the places where you get your podcasts. Also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, all that good. Is on. I always say Instagram, and then I'm like, I don't think we're actually on Instagram. But we're on YouTube. Go to YouTube, huh? All you YouTubers out there. We also have a Patreon.
I think they call themselves Tubesters.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just made that up.
That was what you interrupted my Patreon plug for. That joke.
Now you know how it feels.
I do.
You do.
Yeah. Anyway, we also have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast, and if you donate some money our way, you get some kind of cool stuff, including the most recent bonus episode released for patrons of Smash Fiction only, in which I answered a question that we have been kicking around Smash Fiction for a while now, which is, why exactly does Miles hate Terminator 2? Well, me and Colin Mulcairn, one of our other co-hosts, went on the old broadcasting, and we talked about that. And I explained my problems with the movie, and Colin loves the movie and defended it vigorously, and I attacked it more vigorously, and we had a lot of laughs, and
you are not friends anymore, and you will never speak again.
Well, no, we absolutely are. That's the great part about it, is that it's actually really fun, really respectful, and just point for point conversation, with some conversations about why robots wear sunglasses at night, And if you stay till the very end, then you'll get a very fun surprise involving my wife. So she comes on just for a second. So listen all the way to the end on that, but only if you're a Smash Fiction patron. If you want to hear it, you have to go to patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast and give us money. So go do that. That's the thing you should do right now. And also, while you're at it, go to universesofthemind.com for Universes of the Mind, my science fiction blog where I am breaking down Hugo winners for Best Novel in chronological order. Hugo season just wrapped up last weekend, so it's a topical conversation. But what I'm reading right now is not topical because it was published in 1955. And got the Hugo Award in 56. It is Robert Heinlein's Double Star. I just started writing about it on the blog. I fucking love this book. And I'm really looking forward to writing more about it. There should be a new post up this week, probably tomorrow or the next day. So keep an eye out for that over at Universe of the Mind. And also check out the Odyssey Storytelling Podcast, which is the podcast that I produce and host for Odyssey Storytelling, Odyssey Story Arts Group. And it involves a bunch of people who tell stories about their lives, from their lives, usually related to a certain theme they're given beforehand. So this was the potluck episode of the Unspoiled Storytelling Podcast, the Odyssey Storytelling Podcast, where people talked about potlucks or just pot. So really fun stories there. Check that out. Again, odysseystorytelling.com and the Odyssey Storytelling Podcast, wherever you get your audio entertainment. And I think that's it.
Right on.
That's a lot. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Yeah, I think you got through it pretty quick, so we're good.
For me, I did well.
You did. All right, everybody. Well, thank you all so much for listening. I know that you probably have missed us because we were only doing this every other week, but we are back to weekly now that Game of Thrones is over. So,
mercifully over.
Yeah, I'm just like, I really enjoyed covering it, but it is really tough to do a live show like that. When it gets the kind of attention it does without things getting ruined in the meantime because of spoilers or people being obnoxious or what have you. So in that sense, I'm relieved it's over. And also poor Rasham was about to die doing 3 episodes with me a week. So she was just fucking tired. So yeah. What's that?
She was done with you.
She was just like, because we were going to start Leftovers next week. And she's like, can I have an extra week off before we get started again? I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But yeah, Leftovers is going to be coming up, guys, in a couple weeks. We're finishing up the 3rd season of that. And then I'm going to let that evening lay fallow for about a month and change. And then we are going to start Westworld in 2018. So shit is happening. All right. I think that's everything. You ready, sir? Ready to wrap this sucker up?
Yeah, y'all, thanks for listening. Peace out.
And we will see you next week with one more chapter.
Yep.
Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.